We've got a quorum already, so may I now call the meeting to order. A number of papers have been issued since the last meeting. Members can refer to the agenda for the details. We've received a letter from the Deputy Chairman. He has suggested that we should have a study tour to Singapore. Due to time constraint, we're not going to have a discussion today. And so I will pass the Deputy Chairman's suggestion to the Research Division. And then next time we can have a more detailed discussion as to whether we should have a study tour, and if so, where we should go. All right, next meeting to be held on the 17th of January. Now, the administration has proposed 2 items. First of all, the THB's initiatives under the Policy Address 2014. And then second, proposed revision to fees and charges relating to road traffic. The starting time of next meeting will be advanced by half an hour to 10:15, so that members will have more time to discuss the 2 issues. All right, members? Do you have other things that you want to discuss? Yes, Mr. Wong Kwok-hing. Chairman, thank you. I have 2 issues to raise, and I hope that you can discuss with the administration when these matters can be discussed. First of all, the 10-cent surcharge for the platform screen doors. Now, because when the 10 cents, I know it's taken into account in the fare adjustment, and because of the 10 cents, the denominator has been increased or boosted. And then concerning paper CB 1367, we've also got a similar suggestion contained therein. And then the next item that I hope that the chairman can bring up with the Bureau is this. Recently, there have been media reports about the conversion of lorries into advertising vehicles involved in advertising, sales, marketing. Now, in fact, I have seen such vehicles in Causeway Bay, stationed on the road, carrying out marketing activities. Thank you, Chairman. All right. So I will ask the administration to give some preliminary responses. Mr. TANG, Ka-piu. As Chairman, I hope that we can discuss 2 issues on the list of outstanding issues as soon as possible. First of all, item 16, transport arrangements for cross-boundary students. Yesterday, there was an announcement by your party, but I think it's important that the Education Bureau, the Immigration Department, and the THB can work out arrangements for the benefit of cross-boundary students. Because at the moment, I understand that such services are extremely expensive. If there can't be such measures in place, then people will rush to Shui. And then minibus fares, item 13 and item 18. Now, in fact, the disadvantaged groups as well as the minibus operators all hope that the $2 scheme can be extended to minibuses. Right, thank you very much. So, we've decided on the items for the next meeting to be held on the 17th of January. And now let's move on to the next item on the agenda, the Vehicles and Drivers Licensing Integrated System Infrastructure Enhancement Project. Please invite the administration in.
So
we'd like to welcome government officials, including Mr. Yao Shing Mu, Undersecretary for Transport and Housing, then Ms. Amy Chan, PAS for Transport and Housing, Mr. Cheng Chin Pang, Assistant Commissioner, Transport Department, Mr. Wilson Chu, PEO, Valid and Licensing, Transport Department, and Ms. Rita Lau, Senior Systems Manager, E-Strategy Transport Department. The Undersecretary, please. Thank you, Chairman. Now, the Transport Department is now using the Vehicles and Drivers Licensing Integrated Data System or Valid system. We've hired a consultant to review the facilities and to identify areas of improvement, and the consultant has also looked at new business demands. And according to the consultant, the design is still a commonly adopted design, and so there is no need to develop another system. But then the current maintenance contract will expire in September 2017, and the hardware and the software are aging, and so we need to upgrade the aging hardware and the outdated software so as to increase the serviceable life of the system and to enhance its performance to meet the needs of the residents. At the moment, this system supports vehicle and driving licensing services such as registration of vehicles, issue and renew of vehicle licenses and permits, issue and renew of driving licenses and permits, and so on and so forth. In 2012, over 2.8 million licensing transactions were dealt with by the system. In other words, an average of 11,000 per day. So it can be seen that the hardware and software need to be upgraded in a timely manner, because any delay of or any breakdown for only even one day will affect 11,000 transactions. And then, as I have said just now, the current maintenance contract will expire in September 2017, and so we need to update the hardware and software in a timely manner before the expiry of the maintenance contract. And so, in fact, this is quite an urgent project. Concerning the hardware required, they include the web server, the application server, and so on and so forth. And then the software include the OS, the database management system, and also security patches, and also invasion check systems. It is expected that the enhanced system can have a serviceable life of another 10 years, and we, with members' support, will go to FC to apply for $71 million. Thank you. I welcome members' questions. Mr. Wong Kwok-hing, Chairman. I've got some questions. The Director of Audit has criticized the Valid For system. He said that a lot of manpower resources were required, and now the Bureau is seeking to enhance or upgrade the system. And so we'd like to know whether with the enhancement of the system there will be savings achieved with regard to manpower resources. And secondly, the Director of Audit has said that there should be more communication with the between the Transport Department and the audio. Now the maintenance contract will only expire in 2017, and so we still have sufficient time. So I would like to know whether you've sought the advice of the audio and so on and so forth.
Perhaps I should provide a brief reply, and then our Transport Department colleagues will supplement. We know that the audit did at that time make certain recommendations. As for our proposals this time, in future, when a contract is awarded in terms of design and implementation, we'll absorb the recommendations of the audit to enhance our workflow and management. Our TD colleagues will supplement in this regard. As we explain in our paper, in paragraph 4 of the paper, the Government Chief Information Officer supports this project and proposal, and in the whole process we did communicate with them. I'll defer to Mr. Chung to explain how we're going to implement the audit recommendations. Mr. Chung? Thank you, Mr. Wong. As for Valid For system, in terms of the plentiful human resources from tendering to completion, back then is the first time the TD computerized the whole system. The scale of the project was very huge, and the tendering exercise was conducted rather hastily. After absorbing experience from that exercise, this time we'll only upgrade the system to a more long-term development. That is, from 2017 there will be a 10-year lifespan up to 2027. So we've absorbed experience from the last exercise in tendering, and vetting of bids will allow more time. And the audio has all along sent somebody to the TD to assist us in upgrading the system. Thank you, Chairman. Mr. Chairman, I have a follow-up question. In the past, the media did report or criticize that some licensees had changed their addresses and you had not upgraded your system timely. That's why delivery failed and problems resulted. This time, when you upgrade the system, have you paid attention to how to plug that loophole? Mr. Chow, thank you, Mr. Wong. For this Valid For system is entirely computerized. If an individual is to update his address or personal particulars, all particulars in our computer system will be upgraded at the same time. For example, if his address has been changed for his driving license, then under his name, if he has 4 vehicles, all vehicles will be updated in terms of his personal particulars. And some updating may be required for the financial aspects. If the licensing unit has upgraded the particulars but not the financial units, then the second time a new address will be stamped upon the old address to update the delivery address. So according to our information, errors are not being very frequent. Have you resolved the problem then? Now, well, when we upgrade the system this time, we'll consider that aspect to see how we can verify once again with the, say, vehicle owner or licensee. In the example mentioned by Mr. Wong, the main issue is not that you provide or the individual provide a new address to the TD and you are going to change all addresses under his name. Mr. Wong's question is how to provide a more convenient computer system to allow, say, an individual to make online changes by way of his, say, desktop computer. Otherwise, the individual will have to submit forms to the TD to make the changes. Well, this time you're going to extend the lifespan of this valid for system. So he does not think that you are upgrading your service. All right, there are 4 more colleagues to ask questions. Any more colleagues who would like to ask questions? This meeting will last till 11:30. Any more? If not, I'll draw a line there. Ka-piu, Jeffrey Lam, Frankie Yik, Wu Chi Wai, and Lo Wai Kwok. Any more? No more. So I'll draw a line there. 4 minutes for each member. Well, just now I did not mention you. So, well, Mr. Ka-piu, thank you, Chairman. The theme of this paper is to enhance repair and maintenance. I'm concerned about the personal particulars of over 1 million people because the licensing regime of the TD covers 280,000 items, or rather 2.8 million items. So you are in possession of millions of items of information. So just now Mr. Wong was concerned about security of information. Take, for example, if a person beats the red light, you have to see the front of his face before you can verify the person. All right, you would like to enhance security. Now, in the past 3 years or 5 years, given such a huge database, did you have any security problems? For example, were personal particulars leaked and used improperly? If so, under what circumstances? My second question is, how can you enhance law enforcement? Can you elaborate on that? And then for driving licenses, names, ID card numbers, address, date of birth will be recorded. Will you record 1 or 2 more particulars? That is, by way of this exercise, how many more items of personal particulars will you add to your system? And by developing this system, will you collaborate more with other departments like the police? Will you have upgraded collaboration and communication? Mr. Chairman, perhaps I should briefly answer this. There is a relevant issue here. That is security management and handling. Well, Under Secretary, the 4 minutes are mine. Well, I'll answer your question first. Concerning Mr. Tang's question, may I say something about the security of the database? Were there any systemic problems? And will extra particulars be covered? Now, we're subject to the ordinance. We must only collect data that are relevant to us. Whether other particulars can be collected, I'll defer to Mr. Chang. Mr. Chang? Thank you, Mr. Tang. First of all, I have to say that this computerized licensing system of the TD will not have any interaction with the public. For all transactions, we do it by way of our e-services. That is My Government Hong Kong website. So we don't have direct contact with the public externally. And according to the IT security guidelines promulgated by the government, we have to observe certain security measures. As our system is already old, we need to appropriately upgrade it. To answer Mr. Tang's question, throughout these years, we've not had any leakage of information through the system. We're mainly to assist vehicles and people and to issue licenses. So we only need the basic information of vehicles and people. We won't add items that are not related to the TD. Of course, we have collaboration with the police, like in the case of the issuance of summonses. They do provide information to us, and we do have collaboration with them. Mr. Jeffrey Lam? Mr. Chairman, just now the Under Secretary said that this valid for system may not be able to cope with operational and management demands. So what are the operational and business demands? You choose not to procure a new computer system. That's correct. If you can still use the old one, why buy a new one? In this exercise, you're going to upgrade the system. For how long will the system be extended in lifespan? I really have to commend you that if you can use the old system, you don't need to buy a new one. Unlike the RTHK, which was spending $6 billion instead of $1.6 billion for their systems. Now, I'm concerned whether or not your upgraded system will be able to cope with the next 10 years of demands. Otherwise, you may come again to ask us for a new computer. So would you please tell us what you lack at the moment and where your future demands lie? To answer Mr. Lam's question, when we designed the valid for system, we use this so-called infrastructure design as an open system which can cope with demands for some time to come. And in this infrastructure maintenance contract, which will expire in 2017, given this upgrading exercise, the system can continue to work. And in the interim, we have to take care of the hardware and software, like the security software or hardware, which may age or become outdated. So sometimes we need to change the parts. So we don't need to develop a new system. It's not so expensive. This time we're asking for $70 million. I recall that back then we asked for $200 million for the new system, $220 million other departments asked for much more. So we've been cost effective and have been taking care of taxpayers' money. So we are viewing the system from that angle. Now there's an existing practice. What about future demands in the next 10 years? Yes, I'm going to that. After this upgrading, every year we'll look at changes forecast for the next 5 years. If there are to be changes, we may need to have small-scale adjustments to cope with the changing demand. So for this item, we'll do it like this way. Can the old system cope with future demand? Say if your old system can only perform up to a certain level, do you need upgrading, and under what circumstances will the system be upgraded? Well, Mr. Chairman, precisely in this proposal, something is about upgrading. I mean the system. Well, it's not just 1 or 2 computers, it's the whole system. I mentioned just now that hardware and software need to be upgraded. For example, the OS, the operation system, that's basic, and the system has to cope with future workload in terms of functionality. So the processing capacity will be doubled. Well, I think Mr. Lam is concerned that after the upgrading, what services would be enhanced such that in terms of licensing or other services, you can easily cope through this system. Apparently, there's no exact answer for members.
Mr. Frankie Yik. Yes, thank you, Chairman. I have 2 technical points and 1 question relating to the future operational cost. Now, according to the taxi trade, taxi drivers involved in accidents have to be, of course, recorded, and then penalties or notices of penalties are sent to the drivers, not to the taxi owners. And so the taxi owners have no knowledge of such tickets or summonses. And this is particularly important when they need to take out insurance for their taxis. So in fact, in the last term in the joint committee, we discussed the matter. We said that the notice should also be issued to the taxi owners. And then second, now we never remember when our licenses expire. So now we all have mobile phones. So can the transport department send an SMS to the vehicle owners, say 1 month before the expiry date? And then according to para 8, it is said that there will be a net increase in the recurrent expenditure of about $9 million. Now, I don't understand. Now, in fact, when we have a new system, efficiency should be enhanced, and manpower resources, or there should be savings in manpower resources. So why is it that the recurrent cost will go up after the enhancement? Yes, Mr. Zhang. Chairman, thank you. Now, the so-called moving traffic offences include speeding, and as a result, the drivers are punished. But then, say if it's not a moving offence, say illegal parking, then the owner will be punished. Now, say if it's speeding, then we will, the policeman will intercept the vehicle. And as you know, there is also the demerit point system involved. And so, Mr. Yik is of the view that for moving offences, the vehicle owners or taxi owners should also be informed. We can consider it, but then we have different contact details for the drivers and for the owners in case of commercial vehicles. No, but then you have the vehicle registration mark. But then the drivers may not want the owners to know of the offences. But then the drivers are the employees, and the owners are the employers. They should know. And if there is a registration with my Gov Hong Kong, then there will be advance notification or reminders. Can you step up publicity? I am not aware of this service. Yes, of course we can step up publicity. Another. Do you have further replies? Yes. The $9 million mainly have to do with inflation. Now, the previous or the current maintenance contract was signed during SARS in 2003, so it was really value for money. So we need to take into account inflation in the future. What I want you to assure me is that no extra manpower resources will be required. No additional manpower will be needed. But then according to Mr. Yik, enhancement of the system should allow you to cut the amount of manpower resources. Mr. Chairman. Now, this is one of the advantages of the enhancement. Now, every month we have to have regular maintenance, and as a result, the system will have to be down for some time. So when people go to the government website, they will know that the site has to be down because of regular maintenance. But with the enhancement, the system will be able to operate throughout the year. Mr. Wu Chi-wai. Chairman, I think we understand that in fact a computer system or the hardware, the capacity of the hardware has been greatly increased. But then it said that the capacity will only be increased or doubled. But as far as I understand, the capacity in fact should be much greater. And we understand that you need to upgrade or replace the aging hardware and software, and you don't need to develop a new system. But then if you expect the capacity to only double, then I think given the development of hardware, in fact the cost, I think there is room for a further reduction in the cost. And then, and Mr. Yik has also raised this question, and that is now the hardware will be replaced, or the hardware will be replaced, the system will be enhanced. So why is it that there will be a net increase in the recurrent expenditure of about 9 million per annum? So we want to know why there will be a net increase in recurrent expenditure after the enhancement. Mr. Zhang. Thank you, Mr. Wu. At the moment, the operating cost is about $2.82 million per annum. In 2002, about 2.3 million. So about up 20%. In the past decade or so. Now, in fact, with the enhancement, the capacity will reach 9 million. And so we don't think there is a need to have a capacity beyond 9 million. We think 9 million will be enough for the next 10 years. I think Mr. Zhang has misunderstood me, Chairman. Now, the hardware will be upgraded or replaced. The software will also be enhanced. The capacity can be greatly increased. So I would like to know the maximum increase in capacity. And with if we can maximize the capacity, then will it be more convenient for the public in the future to retrieve the data? Now, I wish to continue. So every year, 2.8 million transactions. And with the enhancement, the capacity will double. So in the next decade, even if the number of transactions doubles, we'll still be able to cope. Now, and the speed will also be increased with the enhancement. For example, it will take a shorter period of time to log in. And then the $9 million, as I explained, the current contract was signed in 2003. And we believe that the contract price will increase by this amount. But then, of course, there will be open tendering. The ultimate tender price is not known. Yes, Chairman, I agree with Mr. Frankie Yik. Now, if the hardware and software are to be upgraded, then the quality of the service should also be upgraded. Now, for example, vehicle licenses and so on and so forth. Can an SMS reminder be issued to vehicle owners before the expiry date? That would be very, very helpful. And concerning the servers and the routers, where will they be installed? Would like to know whether the present operation will be affected. And I hope that they can give me detailed answers concerning these technical aspects. Mr. Zhang, as to whether we can issue SMS reminders for renewal of licenses and permits. I think this is a suggestion to provide better service to the public. We'll consider that suggestion. And then at the moment, our data center is in Sha Tin, and I will not open it, disclose where exactly it is. And in future, the data center will still be in Sha Tin. We will dispose of some outdated computers, and then we will purchase new ones. Now, the new computers are much smaller in size, and so our present data center should be spacious enough to accommodate the new computers. And where are the backup copies? Are they stored in the same place? Because it's important that there are backup copies for security reasons. And in fact, we have a small center, not in Sha Tin, but in Fanling, for keeping backup copies. We do make sure that, say, if there is an accident like flooding, the backup copies will not be destroyed as well. I think using IT to enhance the quality and standard of service is a worldwide trend. And so it's important that the standard of service be provided. I understand that you can now provide a one-stop service concerning issue and renewal of licenses and concerning electronic documents. I think you've done quite a good job. But I want to say that in the mainland, they used to be rather backward, but then they've moved forward very rapidly, and they in fact do have SMS reminders for vehicle owners. Yes. Well, I think we do welcome members' suggestions as to what e-services can be provided by the Transport Department so as to enhance the standard of service to the public. Say, for example, if I want to renew a license, if I can apply and pay on the internet, and then if I can print the license or the permit using the printer at home, that would be very convenient. And then provisional licenses and permits, it would be good if these can be applied via the internet.
Because nowadays this technology is already very common. If we cannot, by way of this upgrading exercise, provide services to facilitate the public, it would be very pitiful. I'd like the GCIO to assist in this regard. Just now our colleagues asked what comments the GCIO has offered in this exercise. We'd like the GCIO to provide recommendations to the relevant departments so as to enhance the present manual operations. As e-technology is so advanced nowadays, you don't need to go to each and every department like the TD to process your transactions. That will be very good. So please study this further. Colleagues, as the administration is to submit this paper to the Finance Committee for applying a funding at the level of $7.71 million, I'd like to ask you whether there's any objection. No objection, all right? So, Under Secretary, you know our position. Let's proceed to the next item on the agenda. Please invite the relevant officials to come in. Our next item on the agenda is proposal to raise the mandatory requirement of using child restraint device in private cars, CRD in private cars. We have a few more colleagues from the Transport Department for this item. Apart from the Undersecretary, we have the Deputy Secretary for Transport and Housing, Ms. Ivy Law, the Deputy Commissioner of Transport Department, Mr. David To, and the Assistant Commissioner of Transport, Mr. Leung Tak Fai. The paper has already been distributed to members, so Undersecretary, would you brief us on the paper? Mr. Chairman, the main objective of this paper is to seek members' views on a proposal to raise the mandatory requirement for using child restraint device to enhance passenger safety. At the moment, there are 3 common devices. First of all, for those at the age of 1 or below, that will be the carry cot. And then for those generally for about 9 months to 4 years, the child safety seat and the booster seat, generally for those between 4 to 12 years old. At the moment, in the front seat of private cars, children have to use CRDs. But then the regulations do not mandatorily require that CRDs be available in rear seats. Still, we noted that in the rear seat of some private cars, there are CRD installations to provide better protection to young children. We understand that the general public attaches great importance to road safety. Although in recent years, serious car accidents involving fatalities and injuries of drivers and passengers were not that many. But still, we would like to enhance the mandatory provision for CRD installation to provide better protection to the passengers. We consulted the medical sector and overseas jurisdictions. And now, we have 4 options for body weight and age for members' discussion. For the 4 options, option 1 is for children. Children must use a CRD until they are either 1.35 meters or 8 years old. Option 2, children must use a CRD until they are either 1.4 meters or 9 years old. For option 3, children must use a CRD until they are either 1.45 meters or 10 years old. Under option 4, children must use a CRD until they are either 1.5 meters or 11 years old. To illustrate the requirement under option 1, a child with body weight shorter than 1.35 meters and age less than 8 will have to use a CRD. In other words, a child aged less than 8 but with a body height of 1.35 meters or above will be exempted from the use of CRDs. Of course, the child must use an adult CRD then. And then a child aged 8 and above with height less than 1.35 meters will also be exempted. So it's about body height and age under these 4 options. We propose that for the front and rear seats of private cars, CRD should be installed to provide more effective protection to children. This is in line with the practice overseas. Together with the police and the road safety Council will carry out publicity and education. We've also consulted the TAC, whose members welcome and support the proposals to enhance the protection for children passengers. We keep an open mind on all the 4 options. We're willing to listen to the views of members, and members' views are welcome. We'll take them as references. Thank you. Mr. Wong Kwok-hing, Frankie Yik, Mr. Albert Chan, and Mr. Gary Fan have raised their hands. Any more? If not, 5 minutes each. Mr. Wong Kwok-hing. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I support the proposal of the government, but I have a few questions for the administration. Between May and June this year, there were serious traffic accidents. Some children in those 2 traffic accidents either sustained serious injuries or died. This indicates that we must, as soon as possible, enhance the safety system to ensure child health. My question is, in August this year, the Consumer Council also published a report on CRDs, pointing out that 27 CRDs available in our market at the moment, 1/3 performed very poorly for bombardments from the front. Some other devices caused skin allergy. So for CRDs, can we consider a safety labeling system? It's just like helmets required for motorcyclists. We do have safety labels for the helmets so that consumers can procure appropriate and safe devices. If the government does not publish guidelines in terms of such safety devices, consumers won't know what to do. Even after installation, the safety of the child cannot be ensured. That is, even with a CRD. Now, this paper is about the rear seats. But for the front seat, in the past, when there were traffic accidents, when the airbag bounced out, the child sitting in the CRD in the front seat was also in danger. So how are you going to handle those two issues? Well, can CRDs be placed in the front seat? I don't think so, right? Undersecretary, well, we attach great importance to the few aspects mentioned by Mr. Wong. I'll defer to Mr. To for the answers. Now, Mr. Chairman, first of all, I'd like to say something about specifications. Under the existing regulations, we do have specifications for the CRDs. Of course, we're very grateful to the Consumer Council for carrying out a survey on CRDs. The survey will benefit parents when they procure CRDs in future. Of course, if we want CRDs to be more common in the community, the market will provide more choices, which have to satisfy our specifications as well as international standards. As regards the installation of CRDs in the front seats, well, let's not talk about the age for the moment because we propose to lift the age requirement. Now, at the moment, we propose to have CRDs even in the front seats. As for these airbags, we did refer to other jurisdictions for CRDs both on the front seats and in the rear seats. Therefore, in this proposal, we suggest that CRDs must be installed in the front seats, and we propose to make this mandatory for the rear seats as well. As for the CRDs for front seats, we took reference from 17 jurisdictions and their legislative requirements and discovered they did not specify details for CRDs on the front seats. At the moment, this is not a serious problem. Of course, if parents are concerned, when they choose CRDs, say if they really want the CRD to be put on the front seat, they should read the specifications to see whether or not they are for rear seats or whether additional requirements are imposed for front seats. Well, he has not answered my question. Like the helmets for motorcyclists, are we going to have a labeling requirement? Labeling requirement. Well, for CRDs, we already have an international standard. That is to spell out the specifications for CRDs. Mr. Leung, all CRDs have to satisfy standards in the regulations, including the EU standard, US standard, Japanese standard, Australian and New Zealand standards. Such CRDs have to bear labels like these. This is the European standard, this is the Australian standard, this is the New Zealand standard. So, such labels should be attached to the CRDs concerned to specify that they satisfy multi-specifications. Well, after the meeting, would you please give the information to members? Mr. Frankie Yik. Mr. Chairman, I'd like to follow up on Mr. Wong Kwok-hing's question. I'm not satisfied with the administration's reply. You say that there are international standards, but now in the market there are CRDs with no labels. Right, Mr. Wong Kwok-hing? So if any CRD does not satisfy the specifications, you should ban them from the market because the general public don't understand what safety labels are all about. In the paper, you say that you would like to extend the regime to rear seats and even for families with no private cars. But even for families with private cars, they need such requirements. Say if my son has a car, my grandson comes to my home, if I have to take the grandson to the clinic, to the school, or to hospitals, my car may not have a CRD. So what should I do? Well, I guess you will include penalty clauses in the legislation. What are they then? What are the details? So in future, should all private cars have several CRDs in them to be well prepared for any circumstances? And the Secretary? Well, if the public agrees with us that we need such a proposed legislation, then we need to enforce the legislation as well. Is it that all new cars will have to install CRDs? I defer to the department for future arrangements. Mr. To? Mr. Chairman, our thinking at the moment is that if a car is to take friends who don't normally use the car, then for the sake of law enforcement and easy identification, for the time being, we have thought about whether or not to provide an exemption.
And concerning penalties, this paper is mainly on the 4 options. Now, in fact, there are already penalties for not using or not properly using the seat belts. And if the legislation is amended to include the mandatory requirement of using CRD in private cars, of course, there will be penalties. And if at the moment for this offense, the driver may be fined $2,000. Chairman, I wish to follow up on the first point. So my grandson is at my home. I have to take him to the clinic, and my car doesn't have a CRD. Then, as you know, I'm a law-abiding person, and so does it mean that I'll have to call the ambulance? I think you need to consider such factors as well. Under Secretary, as Chairman, if it's a mandatory requirement to use CRD in private cars, then there must be CRDs in the private cars, and that in fact there are other modes of transport available, including ambulances or taxis, of course. Right, Mr. Albert Chan. Chairman, I think any policy change should be a forward-looking step. We understand that children's safety is of utmost importance. But then it has been pointed out in the paper that in fact we haven't had too many accidents in recent years. in which private car child passengers were killed or seriously injured. But then I want to say that the policy change will have an impact on car owners, private car owners. Now, I think nobody will oppose tightening of standards in principle, but then we have to look at the reality. For example, children aged 4 to 12 years old, if the number of private car accidents involving them has been low, then is it really necessary to perform such a big operation on this illness? And also we have a lot of school buses or school children buses, and many of them don't have seat belts. So will you help these operators, or why is it that you are looking at private cars and not these school buses? Because there are many school children using these school buses, going to school and going home from school. So is it that you should just look at the situation in other countries without really considering the Hong Kong situation? Yes, Undersecretary. Yes, Chairman. Yes, I think we need to look at the urgency of the matter, and whether the seriousness of the problem, and whether the measure proposed is proportionate or commensurate to the seriousness of the problem. It is true that the number of such accidents has been low in recent years, but then there is increasing safety awareness in society, and we do not want to see children injured or killed in traffic accidents because there aren't CRDs on private cars. And in fact, we have an open mind. We would like to have the views of LegCo members and the general public. And we've also consulted the medical sector on where the line should be drawn. And then school buses. Now it is not mandatory. It's not a mandatory requirement to have safety belts. But then concerning the seats, they can. They are safe, and also there are also helpers on board school buses. In fact, school buses haven't been a problem, but of course, if necessary, we will also need to step up the safety on these school buses. With regard to this present proposal, we are willing to listen to the views of members and the general public. We'd like to know your suggestions. So we are open-minded on this matter. Now, Chairman, can the administration provide some data concerning the accident rate, traffic accident rate relating to child passengers, and the total number of journey hours involving child passengers? So we'd like to know where a tightening of the standard is needed most. Yes, perhaps I can invite Mr. Toh to give members some figures. Chairman, private cars, death and serious injury rate of children And in 2011, we discovered that in private cars, for every 1 million children under 12, the death and serious injury rate was 6.5. But then overall, the rate was, 12.9 per 1 million people. And so the death and serious injury rate involving child passengers is lower than that for passengers at large. But then have you looked at school buses, minibuses, buses? Do you have the death and serious injury rate involving child passengers? I don't have the figure here with me, so please give us a reply in writing. Mr. Gary Fan? Now this meeting will be adjourned at 11:30. Do we have other members who would like to ask questions? TANG, Ka-piu, Ping, Kwok, Paul Chair? Anyone else? No? Right. 4 members. 4 minutes per member. Mr. TANG, Ka-piu. It should be my turn. Oh, sorry, Mr. Gary Fan. Now, Chairman, I welcome the administration's approach to plan before the situation becomes very bad. But of course, we must have a measure or a policy which is proportionate to the seriousness of the problem. Now, my daughter is 11 years old, and in fact, many years ago, she started taking school buses. Now, of course, we hope that there can be enhanced protection for the safety of children on private cars. But then, will similar standards be proposed for school buses to enhance the protection of the children? So you're proposing this mandatory requirement for private cars. But we'd like to know whether there are also very heavy penalties in relation to school buses. Now, on one occasion, I took my daughter to another country. She was 2, and my friend drove a car to take us to his home. But then he was not aware of the fact that there was the requirement for CRD for a child, and as a result he had to rush to a toy shop nearby to buy a CRD. So is it really very easy or convenient to buy CRDs in the market? And say if a child meets with an accident in a country park, and a vehicle owner may want to drive the 8-year-old child to hospital, but then he is worried that he may be committing a criminal offense in taking the child to the hospital, and his car is not equipped with a CRD. So what should he do? Yes, I hope the members can be concise when they ask questions. Under Secretary. Yes, I do understand Mr. Fan's question. The school buses or nanny buses are different from private cars. For these minibuses, there are already very safe seating arrangements. But then these safe seating arrangements are not available on private cars. And so we think there is room to tighten the safety standards on private cars. And of course, when we prepare the legislation, we'll take into account the appropriateness of the level of penalties proposed. And then Mr. Fan mentioned a situation yes, of course, the driver will be committing an offense, but then is it but then there will be defenses, and in fact at the under the existing laws, there are also defenses that the defendant can put up. For example, public interest. Mr. TANG, Ka-piu. The government is open-minded, but then do you have a timetable, or is it that you are so open-minded that you just don't have a timetable for enacting the legislation? And even if you have the legislation, how can you take enforcement action? There are over 400,000 private cars. Now, new minibuses must be equipped with safety belts. I understand that the police do carry out undercover operations. They board minibuses under the guise of being passengers. But how can you carry out such operations for private cars? Under Secretary. Yes, thank you. Now, if members support the proposal, then there will be public consultation in 2014. Then we will analyze the views collected, and then we'll draft the legislation. And in the 2014-15 legislative session, we'll table the bill in LegCo.
As for your second question about future law enforcement, I believe in our road traffic laws, our law enforcement departments will have their own ways and means to effectively enforce the laws. I believe our law enforcement departments have very rich experience in doing their law enforcement work well. Mr. Tang, if you have a legislative timetable in the short term, why don't you put that in the paper? Well, they have to conduct consultation. I know, but from what they said, it seems that they would legislate very soon. So why don't you put that in the paper? And the Secretary, well, if the honourable member want to have a timetable in the paper, we can do so, but we would like to have flexibility. So we're telling members our ideas. We don't really have a specific timetable yet. If there's strong reaction in society, we can adjust our pace. Mr. Poon Siu Ping. Thank you, Chairman. Just now, our colleagues have already asked those questions in my mind. Just now, the Undersecretary said something about timetable. In actual fact, each parent loves his or her children, hoping that their children will be safe. You mentioned a brief timetable. Now, in paragraph 24, you set out 4 options. You consult the medical profession. You also conduct a survey to collect views from vehicle owners. May I know the specific details of your consultation plan? Transport Department, in the paper, we're mainly presenting 4 options to consult the public and councillors which option is better. As mentioned, we have to strike a balance between safety and inconvenience. For the time being, we're considering interviews. For example, in our licensing offices, we can interview vehicle owners and members of the public to gauge their views on the future direction as well as their choices for the 4 options. So that's our plan for the time being. Next, Dr. Kwok-hing. Mr. Chairman, if you want to have CRDs for children at the age of 4 or even above, the general public will support you. Now look at the financial implication. $400 to $5,000 odd up to $6,600. If a family has 2 children, if you set very high standards, then it will be a very heavy financial burden on the households. Not all vehicle owners are rich people. Those who live in rural areas really need a private car to take their children to and from school and for other activities. After setting the threshold, will you gauge the impact of your standards on their financial burden? Now here in the paper you say that in the market prices range from $400 up. I think $400 is the minimum. So long as the minimum threshold is satisfied, you'll accept it, right? And in future, you may have to gazette the types of CRDs allowed. I'm worried that if you put in so many details, if I'm the manufacturer, I'll know what to do. I will lift the prices of the CRDs because they're needed. And for the Academy of Pediatrics, they mention those between 8 to 10 years old. You see, some of these children are even taller than a female adult who may just be 1.5 meters in height. So are you going to adopt the recommendation of the pediatricians? And your paper is not adequate. You should provide more data and justifications for any opinion. And you don't have the data here. So in future, for your public consultation exercise, you also need more detailed data for the public to rely on. Otherwise, they won't know how to answer your questions. Concerning Dr. Kwok's questions, basically, we base our recommendations on the experience of overseas jurisdictions. Well, but what about height? Their height may not be the same as the height of Oriental people. Well, we also consulted the experts in Hong Kong as well as the community at large. So why do we propose to have a consultation? We're not going to determine the future direction immediately. You asked for data. I think after the meeting, I'll understand more with you what sort of data you would like to have. As to the extent of details to be put into our legislation, the market may change. There may be new products in the market. As time goes by, they may not necessarily rise in prices. So long as the CRD satisfies our safety requirements, we may not specify details for, say, the design and other details, but in the legislation we'll set the safety standards. The data asked for are very simple. We would like to reduce the accident rate, and economically, how are you going to reduce risks? You don't have these data in the paper. So please submit the data after the meeting. Mr. Porde? Well, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to understand something. There are 4 options in the paper. involving age and body height. Of course, we understand that statistically, body height and age may be in proportion or not. When a child physically grows to a particular extent, it may have to use special safety belts and not adult safety belts. Concerning the maturity of the IQ of children, there may not be any major difference between an 8-year-old and an 11-year-old. Rather, the parents, the adults, will have to bear the statutory responsibilities or liability. So I'd like to know the enforcement standards. Secondly, in the existing legislation, there are exemptions. For 3 children with body height not exceeding 1.3 meters, 3 children can be considered as 2 and can be exempted from safety belts. And in the past, there are traffic accidents, particularly involving 90 buses, occurred because of this exemption. So will you consider whether this exemption is appropriate? Under Secretary. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think Mr. De's first question is about body height and age. Of course, in general, in terms of the human structure, the body height is more relevant to safety belts or safety devices. But in the development ages or process of a child, the parents may not be able to grasp the exact body height. So age is more easy to grasp for parents to know whether or not they are satisfying the statutory requirements. So that's the understanding and thoughts in our mind. And we would gauge public views on such views. We'd also ask the experts in the accident and emergency sector. They told us that so long as a child is tall enough to sit without slouching and able to keep his or her back against a vehicle seat with the knees naturally bent over the edge of the seat and feet flat on the floor, the child can use an adult seat belt. So that's the view of the Hong Kong College of Emergency Medicine. So that's nearer to what you said. That's why we say that we would let the parents have the option of age, because body height may not be easy to grasp. But if you use age, parents may not be careful. For safety's sake, body height is more appropriate for safety belts. Well, if the body height of a child is less than the average, then safety may be neglected. Well, we understand the problem you mentioned. That's why we're going to have a consultation period. This consultation period is also a publicity and public education period for parents to understand the exact circumstances. I'll defer to Mr. To to answer the question about exemption available to 3 children. Now, 3 children to be treated as 2 adults is not just a practice in Hong Kong. Other jurisdictions like UK, Ireland, Australia, USA, and Singapore also have similar exemptions. In USA, 3 schoolboys under the age of 14 can be treated as 2 adults. In Australia, the same is applicable. In Hong Kong, as Mr. Jie said, if we set the threshold of 1.3 meters for a child, that will be applicable in future. The Department of Health has this piece of opinion. For an 11-year-old, basically, it can reach 1.3 meters. So the practice in Hong Kong is similarly stringent as those in overseas jurisdictions. As for standards for CRDs, we would like to reach consensus so that we can legislate. Now, these options from the government are open for consultation. Members can still express their opinion in future. This meeting should end at 11:30. After I drew a line just now, Mr. Wu Chi-wai raised his hand, but sorry, I don't have any time for you to ask questions. Our next meeting will be held on the 17th of January at 10:15 a.m. Advanced by 30 minutes because after considering the agenda, I believe we need more time for that meeting. All right, next meeting, the 17th of January at 10:15 a.m. Meeting adjourned. Can I have 2 minutes, Chairman? Well, colleagues, next time, if you have another meeting to attend and if you have questions, please be punctual at the meeting. Just now, I already asked how many members would like to ask questions. I have to control the time of the meeting. Meeting adjourned.